Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Torch Snuffers. I am not your host, Colin Connors, and welcome to Torch Snuffers Gone Rogue. Normally, if you are a viewer of our podcast, you would know that we are led by Colin Connors. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight, and neither is our co-host, Elise Garza. Instead, I'm manning the ship of crazies. My name is Ben Mealy, and joining me on this ride tonight, we have Alex Cash.
Hi.
Elise Anderson.
Hi.
And the lovable Stephen Lehman.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
So, with the fun-filled episode of Survivor coming from last week, we could only expect so much more knowing we are going into a swap episode, and did it fulfill? There is a lot to discuss from this episode, so we're going to get right into it, and we're going to go right to that topic, the tribal swap. Stephen,
Yes.
we have had a variety of different tribal swaps over the past several seasons. What is the feeling with the tribal swap with the uneven numbers and the twist of the one tribe member going back Exile Island-ish?
I thought it was a nice little throwback. I was glad I sort of like it wasn't as fun as like Bruce on Exile Island going back to Kasaya, but it was so nice seeing someone sort of have to be on their own. I wish we could have gotten more of like Julia being like Stephanie LaGrossa, but I thought it was a fun dynamic. It's not something I'd want every time, but I thought it was a good change of pace.
Stephen, I can't see but the top 10% of your head.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm mobile tonight, so that might be why. But
It's fine.
yeah, it happens.
Alex, what are your thoughts on the Exile Island for Julia?
Well, I liked that the Exile Island segment was kept to a minimum because as much of a novelty as it is, it does kind of take away from the momentum of the plot, especially when there's an idol hunt involved, which there wasn't this time. There was just a little bit of segment to show that she wasn't having a good time of it, and then we get back to the important people.
I agree with that as well.
But she wasn't being important at the time.
Mm-hmm. So, with a Exile Island twist also comes two new tribes. We have the Blue Chanlo tribe of Nick, Jason, Debbie, Michelle, Neil, and Sydney against the Yellow tribe called Condole with Scott, Joe, Peter, Ty, Anna, and Aubrey. Off the bat, with those names and those people on each tribe, what was your initial thought about the compositions? I'm going to go to Elise on this one.
For initial thought, well, the 2-2-2 split was really interesting just because you weren't really sure who was going to be in the middle, and it looks like Braun is. So, but they also seem to be the stronger tribe, so we don't know if we'll ever see anything of them. The other tribe, the Yellow tribe, I was really worried for Ty this episode, was my first thought. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy that it was all okay. He has another bromance with Scott now that Caleb's out, so got over that really quickly. But I think they're interesting. We needed a swap. Everyone was getting too comfortable where they were. So.
Mm-hmm. Stephen, I want to go to you. Who is your biggest winner and your biggest loser for how that swap came out?
I think biggest winner, if you're looking at new Gondole, I mean, Peter is the one who sticks out like a sore thumb because he had original brains lost again. I mean, he was post. I think he definitely benefited from being put on a new tribe, and I mean, in theory at least, I mean, it still almost bit him in the ass tonight because he's himself. But in terms of biggest loser, other than Anna, who got voted out, I'd say, oh gosh, probably Michelle, because she got separated, and the only person she's left with is Nick, someone who we really haven't seen much from and much of her dynamic with. So I'd say, obviously, other than Anna, it would be Michelle.
I actually agree with you on each of those points. Alex, want to ask you the same question. Who do you think was the best in terms of how that came out, and who do you think did the worst?
Well, I think it really depended on which tribe went to tribal council, and since Chanlo avoided tribal council this time. Nick, I think, got the best boost in position, but so he got the best boost in position. But the people in the best position overall are the bronze, because they're in swing positions on both tribes. They've been whittled down to the point where they don't seem like a threat, and they're necessary for challenges at this stage. And the automatic target on Beauty, thanks to Julia being on Totang Beach, meant that they had time to assimilate. So I think they are in the best position in the game as of right now.
Awesome. And Elise, one last question on that swap.
Oh,
What
I was
was
just
the-
going. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna
you
agree
go with whatever thoughts you have.
I was just gonna agree with Alex Cash that the bronze really got the best boost because they were all so close, and like who knows what would have happened if they went to tribal again. They were losing and losing and losing. So.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, you were saying?
I'm going to still send you this question. What is the impact of having Julia be the player that ended up on the Exile Island twist?
I think that's ultimately what really screwed over the Girls' Alliance on Beauty, is one of them's out, one of them's on the other tribe, and one of them's on Exile, is probably the worst thing they could have possibly come up with, because they're not the strongest in the challenges, which means they can't rely. It's not like Scott or whatever where you can rely on just being a big guy to get you through the next few votes. So I'm worried for Michelle. She seems to be in a bad position, and now I'm worried for Julia, because it'd be easy to be like, well, we got rid of Anna, and then next week we'll just get rid of the other new BB girl. So.
And I read a lot into that, the same that you did, thinking, well, that's 1-1-1, they're done. Like, they set it up that Beauty was going to be the one that was targeted on yellow, and she ended up being the one that's out, so it's basically 1-for-1. Anna for Julia, or Julia for Anna, however you want to put it. But on the other hand, I'm also really confused, because that is the one solid alliance from the first 4 episodes that have been really established in our minds. It was highlighted in the from last episode segment at the beginning of the episode, and immediately after the swap, the first confessional was a confessional on the status of the Girls' Alliance and how to move forward from it. So on one hand, I see it getting crumbled at the moment, but on the other hand, they're still using a narrative of this, what the status is of this alliance, keeping it fresh in our minds. So part of me wants to say that somehow will make sense going forward in a couple episodes. Anyone feel the same or different on that?
One word, 2 words. Exile, 3, sorry. Exile Island Alliance token sheens. It was built up the entire pre-merge, and then it amounted to basically nothing except proving that Taj and Steven were close. So just because we were shown it doesn't necessarily mean to just mean that they needed something on Beauty. Beauty's not going to tribal council. They don't really have that interesting of a story. Caleb and Ty Bromance is out.
Yeah, I feel like
Ty's
with
a
Beauty,
douche.
I feel like we had to have some content for Beauty, because, I mean, we just didn't get them going to tribal council, and I think the reason why we didn't get much strategy talk was because they weren't losing. They had no reason to really go into too many detailed plans. So I think it unfortunately might have just been fluff. But that does beg the question, was it shoddy storytelling? I mean, I think it could have been worse. That's the way I try to look at it. It could have been sort of, I don't know, like ridiculously foreshadowing, like in Samoa, where you have four against 8, but it's okay because they're basically going to be the end. But yeah, no, I think it could have. I wish we'd gotten something else for Beauty, but I'm not going to be too upset about it.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on to actual fallout from the tribe swap, we first got to look at the new Gondol tribe, the yellow tribe, and no, we didn't. We saw the blue tribe first, so we started on low going. I have a good memory, I swear. And the first segment that we really see is an odd pairing by many people's eyes. We suddenly see a bond between Debbie from the Old Grange tribe and Sydney from the Old Bronze tribe. And in that one segment, we also had it shown that Sydney has a pretty intellectual background that hadn't been shown in the first couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go to Elise on this. What are your thoughts on the pairing, and what are your thoughts on Sydney getting this new dimension to her?
I thought it was really good for Sydney just to see another side of her, because so far it's all just been Scott and Jason, and Sydney's just kind of there. We saw her a little bit being friends with Alicia, but I think it's good. It means she might have some longevity in the game. And I think it's interesting because I believe Sydney said pre-game that she didn't want to work with girls, but the fact that Debbie and her get along so well, I think is really good. I'm excited to see how that turns out. Debbie's amazing, as usual.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Does anyone want to talk about Debbie instead of Sydney? Go ahead. This is your time. No?
I was just going to chime in real quick on the Sydney comment. I always thought she was one of the more well-rounded of the Bronze, and it showed this episode she was shown really integrating herself well with the group, just sort of soaking all the info in like a sponge and just letting it all come to her, which I thought was really good. So I'm really liking Sydney's chances.
All right. And on the flip side, in my interpretation of establishing a bottom rung for the new Blue Tribe, we have a segment on Nick, and a healthy reminder to the viewers of just how unaware of life he is, and an even less subtle reminder of how much of a D-bag he is. I have several very enthusiastic panelists wanting to touch upon the Nick subject, so I will not pose a question for the fear of sounding biased or unbiased or however you want to take it, and let whoever wants to take it away, take it away.
Oh, I will. Nick is perfect in every way, but you see, I chose, and I'd like to remind you, I chose him as my winner pick, and I've already beaten 3 of y'all with my Nick pick. Anyway, I feel like his edit is like Drew Christie upside, but he's being overshadowed by Peter, who is Drew Christie. I swear I think he's going to get voted out every single episode, and he somehow isn't. So I'm loving those 2 are like my favorite people in the game right now. So I love them. They're so douchey. It's amazing.
Truer words not yet spoken in the history of any more comments on the Chan Lo tribe? We didn't see much of them in terms of dynamic because they were the winners of the challenge. But any last thoughts on Chan Lo related?
I think that what we did see of them is going to be pretty important in the future because, and this goes back to the why did they spend so much time on an alliance that was going to get eaten by a swap, and I think that may be because the merge is going to be based on things that are completely impossible to predict or foreshadow at this point, much like how the Alliance of 7 at the Worlds Apart merge, you could not have put that together in any way, shape, or form before the merge. And so maybe with the Debbie makes friends with Sydney and things like that, they're trying their best to give us something that will give us a clue going forward. And so I think that will be really important.
Awesome. And before we move on to the challenge and the fallout of the challenge, we do have to touch upon the fact that there was a third red tribe that was renamed of 1, and we did get to see some of their tribe dynamic as well. We got to see a segment about Julia and how she was handling Exile Island, and I found that edit telling. And the reason why I found that edit telling is because that, at the start of it, it was going to be a weak, unprepared person to be on Exile, similar to a I don't know, going back to Janu all the way when it was first created, someone that wasn't able to withstand the elements, not going to the point of her quitting, not by any stretch of the imagination, but she was shown in a much stronger light. She was shown that her biggest concern was not having to survive on her own for 2 days. It was what was happening strategically, and to me, that painted her as strategically strong rather than weak for the game. What are your thoughts on Julia?
Yeah, I thought that edit initially I was a little worried at first because she talked about how she was shutting down and all that, but then she sort of gets this segment where people don't really know how young she actually is and how like she said, her concern was not being alone in terms of surviving, it was being alone in terms of being separated from the dynamics and the goings-ons in the tribe. So I thought that was it wasn't like a Stephanie LaGrossa hero moment where she almost
Hmm.
broke her shoulder trying to do something. But I thought it was still a pretty good edit for Julia, considering she's like an 18-year-old girl fresh out of high school. So
I agree.
also
Any
shout out to
other
Jimmy
thoughts on
Latimer. Mhm.
any other thoughts on Julia?
Yeah. Um, not really. I felt
Okay.
bad for her. I was worried she was gonna get medevaced on Exile because she was
That's
talking
what
about
had
how
me worried at first
dehydrated
as
she
well.
is.
So we move on from the tribes to our first challenge after the swap. And I want to just get a quick survey of the panel on the challenge. 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy that challenge? Alex Cash, and an explanation if you want.
All right, I'll say 7 because I do like it when the challenge has a unifying theme, and the fact that it was bringing the fishing nets in, taking the fish in, and putting them like stacking them like sardines. That was cool. Plus,
Hmm.
I enjoy puzzles where it's a subtle curve to it rather than or where you can't just eyeball the solution, you have to really try to work it out. And also the fact that it was neck and neck right up until the actual puzzle solution.
Yeah.
uh, and you could actually tell that, and that wasn't just manufactured by the edit. So solid challenge all around.
Hmm. Stephen Lehman, give me your number.
I am also going to say 7. I think there's only so much run out, swim, and grab puzzle pieces as you can do. But I thought the way they did the puzzle with the stacking the fish, I thought that was clever and innovative, all things considered. I do wish it had a better title, like, I don't know, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. But, I thought it was a good challenge. Yeah, I'll give it a 7.
And Elise, what are you feeling?
Ah man, I'm gonna say 7 as well. Kind of like it's a standard sort of type of challenge, like Steven said. You run out, grab something, bring it back, untie it, do puzzle. But the puzzle was neat. I really liked that. And I like the fact that they had everyone doing something. It was like split up between running out, untying knots, and puzzle, so you don't get like those two people who are just kind of running around, not really doing much, and then
You don't have like a
uh,
Whittier or a Scout rule where it's like, cut the rope
yeah.
to send the cart flying, light the torch at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that everyone was doing something. It was
Hmm.
neat to watch.
And I'll be saying a 5, and we won't go into detail about that. And moving on to the downfall of the outcome of the challenge. Very close challenge, by the way. I was impressed by the synergy of both teams.
Hmm.
But going into the outcome of the challenge, we saw that Gondal was on the short end of the stick. This again is our tribe of 3 brains, 2 beauties, 1 brawn, and knowing that a beauty is going to be replacing whoever is voted out. So we go off the edits, and it was established even before the challenge that it was going to be a beauty going home, that it had been realized that they would be replacing a beauty for a beauty. It was just, is it going to be Ty or is it going to be Anna? And so the first thing that we see after the consensus that it is a beauty is Ty showing some strategic chops, I would say. He's not necessarily been cast as the most. He's been cast as a very nice fellow, and he showed that he had some strategic prowess, knowing that the end could be near for him, and tries to round up Scott to work with Anna and displays his idol to them. He discloses his idol a day or two after swapping, and for one of them only conversing for 2 days. What are your thoughts on the Ty's disclosure to try and gain trust with people on that vote?
I thought it was. I mean, in Ty's position particularly, it's not like he really saw any other option. I mean, his only other option was to join up with the solid 3 of a brain trio. So I thought it was a really good decision to sort of try and establish some trust with that, with the sort of outsider, if you will. So I thought it was a good move on Ty to disclose the idol to Scott.
Nice. Alex, Elise, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that once he had a crack identified in that, Peter wasn't very popular, he could he could get Anna to trust him and Scott to trust him, because the three of them, they're probably not going to disclose this information to the brains just yet, so it's not like the information's going to spread that quickly. And if he's talking to people about voting out Anna, and he's talking to Anna about voting out Peter, and some people know he has an idol, then that's a pretty good job of A, telling people it's not a wise idea to vote for me, and B, giving them not just one but two alternate options so they feel like they have a choice.
Nice. I agree. Elise, any thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was good because if you notice, like, Anna was throwing him under the bus for, like, most of the time there. He pulls out the idol, all of a sudden she has a reason to want to stick with him. And it seemed like he genuinely did want to use it on her. And unknowingly, it's a good thing for him that he shows it to Scott, because Scott knows that Jason has the other idol, and that could be useful in the future. So.
And that goes so perfectly into the next topic, which is Scott has strategic chops too.
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
You find out that Scott is actually very smart in his thinking by realizing he is the only player in this game to know where not just one hidden immunity idol is, but two. And this is the season where you can make that super idol and just sit still until after the votes are read. So Scott came way out in terms of his strategic prowess this episode and made a very smart move for his personal game. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I will say strategically, like, that definitely vaults him towards the top of, like, the pro athletes we've had thus far. I mean, he's no, like, Gary Hawkins, personally, but, I think I was really impressed with what Scott showed tonight. I honestly did not expect that from him. I didn't expect him to not only, pick up on the whole super idol stuff, but then, reel in Ty like he did. I thought he did a really good job tonight. And I also thought it was interesting, as a bit of a sidebar, that with the recap, as you mentioned earlier, Ben, they really swept the Alicia stuff completely under the rug. It was like, well, they didn't let Alicia escape again, bye. So I thought that was interesting how they sort of, I don't want to say shielded Scott and Jason from that, but they sort of were like, that happened, whatever. So I think Scott has legs.
Another case of survivor revisionist history.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, what a change of an edit in one episode. Like, last episode, we saw him berating Alicia, and it's just, like, he turned out so bad. People were, like, yelling at him and Jason on social media. It got really ugly. And then this episode, we're just like, hey, he's bromancing with Ty. Everything's all great. He, like, he's strategic all of a sudden. Like, he's in the middle, and he's playing it really well. So... and good for him.
On that point, I watched the episodes with my roommate who is watching Survivor for the first time in like 7 or 8 years. And last episode, she was reviling Scott for his actions. And this episode, she said, I think I really like this guy.
Wow.
In one episode, they got the casual viewer to completely change their opinion on this character.
Yeah.
Like, that's a testament of longevity in this game if I could ever see one.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that also, to a lesser degree, was the case with Jason. Granted, we didn't see much in terms of his interactions, but we saw a much more subdued side to Jason than we have previously. And that just may be because he's getting more lost with more people on his tribe, there being more stories going on, or there could be more to that.
Yeah, I'm amazed that Nick was the one who got the I'm going to strategically dominate the tribe kind of, douche confessional.
Manipulating minds.
Well, he's basically a badass. He's a manipulator of the game.
But yeah, like I was surprised that, Jason fell off the radar in terms of the one thing that he's been, doing the most of, and I don't know how that bodes for his future.
I actually think it might have been good for him to have this sort of cool down episode, because after last episode, he sort of saw he had that really, really just big episode with him helping Sydney, and then the whole drama between him and Alicia. Maybe it was best for him to have this sort of cool down episode, because he's shown with Sydney, and he and Sydney both know that they're in the middle. So I think we got from Jason what we needed to get from him, and we didn't get anything more in terms of fluff or whatever. So.
We just got notice that he was there. His tribe didn't go to tribal council,
Right.
So that's all we needed.
They reminded us he was
that
there.
He exists.
Yeah.
Right. And then we finally make ourselves to tribal council. And I like how I'm doing like a walk down memory lane with everyone. We make it to tribal council, and it is established that it's either Anna or Ty, with more of the question of where the vote's lying not in doubt, but whether Ty is going to be playing his idol.
Right.
And I want to get a quick perspective poll from everybody. If they were in Ty's shoes, seeing what we saw in the edit, would you be using your idol on this vote or not? Alex? Based off of the edit, not based off of your perception.
Yeah, because that's the big thing. Based on the edit, I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Elise, it would be a close one.
Mm-hmm. Elise?
No, because even if he feels he makes a wrong move, he can just do it again with Julia next week. Get a redo, essentially.
And Stephen?
Yeah, I'm with Alex. Based on the edit, no.
That was more a question of perception rather than like going deep into it, because I think the obvious answer, what obviously like they couldn't even get the edit to show if it was in the air really. Anna goes home with a unanimous vote. Any final thoughts on Anna? Do you think that she had any missed potential? Do you think that she was just clutter and really had no chance in the game? Anyone can take that one.
I think Anna's probably one of those players that, in theory, if she doesn't get screwed by a swap, I see her maybe making, like, mid-jury. I don't see her going particularly far, like, towards the merge, because she's seen as, like, a strategic threat or something. So I don't really see, like, Anna as, like, oh, man, we missed out on a lot. So.
I just want to point out, good for Anna for being, out of all the poker players play Survivor, she turned out to be the least douchey.
Yeah, Anna.
So good for her.
The poker profession well.
And I can also say that she has some other missed potential, at least in that Colin will be missing her BAPS.
And then we also have to remember John Robert is now officially and canonically the most successful professional poker player. So let's just take a moment to celebrate that.
Or on the inverse, we could not. Moving on.
Can I point out one last thing about tribal council? I just wanted to say that Ty had really good answers during tribal council. Joe came up with well, I don't think there are any idols. There's no evidence. Blah blah blah. And Ty played that so well. You couldn't even. That's such a hard position to be in when Jeff goes, hey, you with the idol, do you know if there's any idols in the game? And I wanted to say, hands off to him.
And on the same vein of representation at Tribal Council came the second Tribal Council in a row for Peter, who decided to continue his unawareness of douchiness by flat out targeting those in the minority. Someone who, a doctor, would probably have the awareness to know that publicly shaming those that are under them is probably a bad play, even if it is the pre-jury. So we can only imagine where that is going to go.
Peter is perfect.
I thought it was just telling that, maybe 6 days later, after he quite literally did the exact same thing of, whatever, they're in the minority, who cares? He does the same thing again. It's funny, but I actually did think that when he was giving those answers of whatever, I actually thought it was going to turn around and bite him in the ass for a split second.
They did very well at making that a minority thought in people's mind.
Yeah.
There's still that glimmer of hope up there that the douchebag will get his day.
I'm sure he will eventually. It's just a matter of when.
Yes.
Like, I
We
swear
can
to God,
only
every
hope
single
so.
episode, I think he's gonna pull a Drew Christie, and he's like the Drew Christie that keeps surviving.
That keeps Drew Christieing.
Yeah,
Like, it's
it's
done.
perfect.
Come
I
on,
love it.
detonate already.
No, I
Exactly.
love it. Every single episode, it's just like lightens it up, makes them feel more happy.
I will say I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to Drew Christie his way through the game, because I feel like his expiration date is unfortunately approaching quite soon. If this isn't too much of a segue with the preview.
His expiration date was like 3 weeks ago.
That's true.
He's
He's like curdled milk at this
just
point,
so
I
we're
guess.
keeping count.
You know, or maybe Drew Christie is the wrong comparison here. Maybe him and Nick are going to be the Joaquin and Rodney of this season. They're going to get together and they're going to talk about bro things.
Oh, God.
We can only hope that we don't have to force America's eyeballs to collectively claw itself out.
That is like my dream come true.
Okay. Back on topic, so we don't cry ourselves to sleep tonight. We now have Anna replaced by Julia on the Yellow Tribe. So if there was the circumstance that Yellow has to go to Tribal Council again, and it's like they haven't made the merge yet, and they go to another Tribal Council, are we going to see a repeat of what happened, or do you think that another 3 days will make a change on the Yellow Tribe?
I think one of so as a sidebar here, I think one of Anna's downfalls was also I feel like she overplayed. I feel like we saw a lot of her going on, like she's like throwing Ty under the bus, and I feel like Julia might be just a bit more nuanced than that. I feel like Julia might have the sort of ability to sort of keep herself reined in and not, immediately be like, okay, bye, Ty. And I think she may be able to, if push comes to shove, get Ty to use an idol on her if it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
But my prospects for Julia are more positive than my prospects for Anna would be.
Fair thought. Elise, any thoughts for you?
I just wanted to point out that we had to see Joe convince Aubrey to keep Peter around, even though it's obviously the most strategic move. So I think if Julia, as long as she's not offensive, we could definitely be seeing a Peter boot sometime soon if he continues to be so douchey. Just hard to live with in general.
I am crossing my fingers. Alex.
Yeah, I think that since the tribe dynamic was 5-3-5 coming in, and now it's 5-3-4, now there's 5 brains, and that's going to look intimidating when you have 3 of them looking at you right in the face, and if there's a crack, it's quite possible that they're going to think, because this obviously, the merge is not going to happen until 11, possibly 10, and walking into a 10-person merge with 5 brains is idiotic. So I think if that tribe continues to lose, Peter's time is probably up very soon. If they win, I don't know what's going on the others.
I'm really hoping, based off of the next episode edit and how it was proposed to us, that Peter's time is up next episode, because I feel like he was his anchor, and I am so happy to see him sawing the chains off of his anchor. I
think Peter, his goose is going to be cooked.
I hope not.
Just for your entertainment, not because you actually want him to win.
Yeah, no way I want Peter to somehow win a jury vote, which he never would anyway.
No.
He's so entertaining. Someone so unaware making it every single episode is just my Survivor dream come true.
I would love to see him get 0 votes at Final Try.
Oh, that would be
my saving grace.
But I feel like that's his ceiling, unfortunately.
Okay, so there has been one big topic.
Maybe he'd get Nick's vote?
Oh my gosh. You are now inferring that both of them get to jury. Please do not have us succumb to that.
Oh my god.
So, the one big topic that we've yet to touch on is we have now 3 live idols in the game. Because this episode started with Neil randomly having idol fever and getting an idol. Like,
Yup.
bing, bang, boom, done, 5 minutes. Let's move on with the rest of our 3 days. What are thoughts? What is the impact of idols in the next several rounds? Is there going to be an impact of idols in the pre-merge? Does anyone think?
No, I don't think I don't see New Gondol winning next week. I just think New Chenlo is going to win. So Niels doesn't come into play. Jason's won't come into play, and I think Ty will be in a good enough position where he won't need to use it. So I don't think anything's happening pre-merge.
Hi. Any other thoughts?
I wish we saw like some of Neil and Jason talking, because then it'd be like, oh my god, will they combine their idols or not? But apparently they're not even like having that conversation. It's all through Debbie. So disappointing.
Debbie working that strategic chops.
Yeah, I love Debbie. Debbie's great.
Right? Oh, she's so great.
Yeah. I have 2 predictions. One is that we're not going to see the idols used while it's still Chandlo versus Bob Dole. And I mean, seriously, every time he said Gondole, I heard Bob Dole. It was weird. And 2 is that we're not actually going to see idols combined. They have to talk about it because it's a new rule, and they even designed them like yins and yangs so that they would fit together. But when it comes down to it, being able to cover 2 people in a vote split situation is probably going to be more valuable than one of them actively giving up their own immunity just so someone else can have a super idol.
Right.
Hey, what the biggest power question coming out of the episode is always who looks like they're going to be winning the game at this point. We saw a lot of people have increases in their stock, and we saw more than a few people lose interest in their stock. Who does each person think is best poised at this point to win this game? I'm going to go to Elise first.
I'm hoping for Debbie. I think she's been doing really well strategically. So.
Alex.
I think that just based on the way that they come across in confessionals and the fact that they have managed to position themselves well so far, I think Aubrey and Neil are the 2 that have the winning attitude and the strategic chops to make it to the end.
Steven?
So as much as I am madly in love with Aubrey, I don't know if she wins. Oh god, I've got to give props to Sydney. I thought she had a really good episode. She was able to give a little insight about herself and talk about the tribe. And I think if she's able to sort of play a bit more low-key like she has now that she's sort of seen as sort of a swing vote, I think she's going to do some major damage.
Hi. And I'm reaching for the stars here, but I'm still losing faith in Michelle on this one. And okay, yeah, get your laugh. Go ahead. You have the next 3 seconds.
No, I mean she's still my official winner, so I'm hoping she wins.
I'm reading into the tribe, like I'm reading into the edit for next episode. I'm reading into the fact that there had to be some justification for the Girls Alliance being focused on. Michelle was clearly the center of that. It was established that she knows how to run a 3-person alliance. I think that it shows her strategic ability. And I think that if they were to go to Tribal Council over the next several rounds, it would be Nick, even if it's Debbie on her side. And if not Nick, then that was a truthful edit, not a diversion, showing that Debbie also wanted to work with the beauties and possibly get out of Braun. So I think that Michelle has more life in the game than is being presented right now, because even with her not being in the strategic nucleus of that tribe, she was still given multiple confessionals in the post-fallout from the tribe swap, which means they still want attention to be on her.
Right.
Hi. Does anyone else have anything else they want to share about this episode?
All right, my logical final three is Aubrey, Neil, Sydney, because I think they're the three that are doing the best. My fan fiction final three is that Debbie rides the Nick and Peter bromance to a unanimous.
That's my
I am
dream come
completely
true.
okay with that.
I think that would probably fall under like a sci-fi fantasy novel that like has tinges of horror in it.
Horror.
Like I don't like. Okay, wonderful. Anything else from anybody that they would like to speak about from this episode?
Debbie would get every single vote.
Debbie has already won America's like favorite, so
True.
Ty
What a
too.
place in our
I love
heart.
Ty too.
Well, of course.
a little bugger.
I feel like they're building up something because we've been seeing so much of Scott and Jason. Now we're seeing Sydney, so I think the Bronze are going to play a big part in the post-merge, and I don't see them going anywhere. It'll be interesting to see how Ty goes into that, because I feel like now that Caleb's gone, Ty has more of a bond with Scott than any of the beauties, really.
Yeah.
Does anyone else find it funny that he always goes to the most masculine person that's available to him?
Hey, I mean, and the thing is, they're all good with it too. They
Yeah.
both Scott and Caleb are all over it. So
I love how Scott is saying he has a bro crush on Ty. It's
yeah, he
not
has a
like
man
the
crush
other
on
way
Ty,
around.
as he specified.
So good.
Yes. Anything else that anybody would like to say before we close it out for the evening? And with that, I guess that is our curtain call. So I thank you, everyone, for taking a chance on us and coming on this journey with the four of us as we, I think, what became the most loose that we've ever been going rogue on the podcast.
Yeah.
I love it.
So let us know if you like looseness or rigidity like we have had in the past. I think both are
Good job,
great.
Ben. Thank you
Yeah,
for taking
Ben,
the hosting
thank
ring.
you
Very
for
much.
piloting this. Yeah.
Yes, I hand back the reins happily to Colin Connors going forward. But as always, we thank you for joining us. My name is Amelie, joined always by Alex Cash, Elise Anderson, Stephen Lehman. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next week.